Hey, what's good, everybody? It's me, your hero, Benjamin Banks, and you are watching Leveling Up with Benjamin Banks. And today we are doing a review for the movie on Netflix called Cosmic Sin. And joining me, as always, is my co-host from the Leveling Up with Benjamin Banks podcast, Rebellious _ D23. How you doing today, D?
Pretty good, man. Pretty good. Ready to go.
Hey, I'm ready to go too. And then joining us as well is somebody who worked on the film Cosmic Sin. That is Mr. Tay Oleson. How you doing today, Tay?
All right, waking up.
Yeah, that's right.
It's lunchtime over here right now, man.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
hey, thank you so much for joining us on our review for Cosmic Sin. And before we get into today's review, make sure that you like this video, you subscribe to the channel, and you hit that bell button so that way you're always notified when we have new content here on Leveling Up with Benjamin Banks.
Podcast in the description. Like, follow, subscribe, and thank you for watching.
So let's go ahead and get into it. So Cosmic Sin is a new movie that just came out on Netflix not too long ago. And it has an incredible cast of actors and actresses. And, when I saw not the trailer, but on Netflix, they show the pictures of, what to watch and whatnot. It had crossed my eyes a couple of times, but somebody recommended me to watch this movie after I had said something about Major Grom on Twitter. So I gave it a try. I told D about it, and D, he was just like, yeah, let's do it. And we kind of regretted it. And yeah, man, it's one of those things where it's just like I was watching it and I was on my phone the entire time I was watching the movie. And I'm a huge movie buff. I love watching movies. I love watching TV shows. So if I'm on my phone the entire time when I'm watching something, then that means that it's pretty boring. But yeah, this movie is about James Ford, and he is a soldier who was what's the word I'm looking for? I'm so sorry.
Honorably discharged.
Yeah,
Yep.
Honorably discharged because he dropped a Q bomb and he killed a bunch of people. And now there's an alien invasion that's coming to Earth. And yeah, that's pretty much the premise of the movie. Now, hey, I want to ask you before we, do a deep dive into doing this review, like, how was it working on this movie?
I mean, it was interesting because it started out like a normal movie with kind of a normal schedule and a decent budget. And then something happened behind the scenes that I wasn't privy to because, I'm a prop guy, I'm not production, where all of a sudden they chopped our shooting schedule down from 24 days to 10, which I mentioned before, like not even a crappy Lifetime movie shoots in less than 15 days.
Yeah.
So to be doing a multi-million-dollar sci-fi epic in, 10 working days is just bananas.
Yeah.
We had like an adequate amount of prep time, but they were doing weird things with the money where like they didn't cut the money loose for any of the departments until like a week before we were supposed to start shooting. So the red flags were going up.
Yeah.
Yeah, they crushed you as far as, shooting time.
Yeah.
It's not long.
Yeah.
10 days.
Yeah, that's a long time.
No, at all.
I know that because when I was watching this movie, there was just certain scenes where it's just like, the camera angles, like they were bad. Like they were all over the place. And like there were times where it's like people would be shooting and I'm just like, well, who's shooting right now? It's like, because you didn't see anybody. And then you would see people at the last minute. And a lot of scenes were foggy too, especially because it's like the aliens, they would get inside people's bodies. And to compare it to anything, it was kind of similar to Venom or Carnage taking over somebody's body. And they wanted to use the humans as hosts. And when it's like early on in the movie, one of the soldiers, he shoots the alien and like she keeps on walking, right? And then he shoots her in the head and it's just like, okay, we got to shoot him in the head. But then it's like at the end of the movie, like when the whole giant battle's going on, like people are just shooting and like they're shooting the aliens like in the stomach and everything and they're dead. And I'm just like, well, what was the point of making it that you have to shoot them in the head? But now it's just like you can just shoot them. And yeah, also too, if it was very foggy and like if it's foggy in this room and like I can't see anything, like how are you able to shoot aliens in the head? Like, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
But that's what happens when
these low budget sci-fi movies, well, low budget, this it's like a tier 1. most of the sci-fi movies I've worked on, they start relying more and more on the fog machine the longer the shoot goes. And of course, the shoot was so condensed that it immediately broke out the fog machine. And so, like, there's always a point on these shoots when I break out my respirator because I don't want to be breathing that stuff. It's like Vaseline, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just, and it's like a weird way to kind of cover for the lack of production value in some of these sets.
I get that. That makes sense.
I did Breach with Bruce Willis also.
I saw that. Yeah. Hey, Tay. Like when we have people come up here with us, I always do my research. And I was telling D, I was just like, hey man, Tay, he's done a lot of stuff, man.
Yep.
Yeah. Hey, pinky's up to you too, man. Like I saw you. This is the second film that you done with Bruce Willis. Like, how was it working with him, man?
He's a really nice guy, but it's funny because people like I heard before Breach actually that he was kind of a jerk. And I had like a suspicion. So when I actually met him and started working with him, what I realized was that people think he's a jerk because he's really deaf. He blew out his eardrum actually in the under the table scene in Die Hard when he's like shooting up that guy through the table because they didn't give him an earplug because the camera was fixed. And they were using full load blanks. You know, he's dumping the mag up through this table.
Yeah.
And it blew out his eardrum. And so he's been super deaf ever since. And so people would go up and they'd start talking to him. And then he would just kind of like walk away.
Yeah.
He didn't realize
because he wouldn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the trick with Bruce Willis is that you got to walk up and look him in the eye and say his name, because even if he can't really hear you, he recognizes the movement of your mouth when you say his name. And so, at the end of Breach, he came up and he shook my hand and he thanked me for, you know, helping him out and stuff like that, which I guess he didn't do with a lot of other people. Yeah. Which is not to brag. It's just to be like, once I understood the dynamic, and then I was trying to tell people like, hey, he can't hear you. Like, you gotta.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome trivia knowledge to know, and thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, Bruce Willis, like, he's the OG, man. I mean, like you said,
come on.
Die Hard, like that's like when it comes to the top action movies for me, Lethal Weapon, Die Hard, like they're right up there at the top, man. And then especially my favorite, Die Hard 3, what he did with Samuel L. Jackson. That's my favorite one out of the entire series. But yeah, I mean, you know, like I had mentioned earlier at the start of this review, you know, the cast for this movie, it was incredible. I mean, like, you had Frank Grillo. If you know, everybody that's watching, if you don't know who that is, he was in the Captain America movies. He was Crossbones. He's also been in the Purge films. Like, he's like honestly, like when they were saying that they were going to come out with a Punisher TV show, I was just like, man, I feel like Frank Grillo going to play the Punisher, but he didn't get the role, but he's incredible, man. And then you had CJ Perry. If you don't know who that is, that's Lana. She was in WWE, and she was with Rusev, her real life husband. And I mean, it was an incredible cast in this. And I know D, you was telling me about some of the cast, like you was telling me about Hoffman.
Hoffman from Saw. Then you got your guy from Scary Movie in there. There's a lot of people, really good cast, and that's part of the reason I had hope for the title. And when your shooting time gets cut in over half, the percentage you were given, it's like, what are you gonna do? You know, so you got to kind of take titles like this for what they are, man. When you find out the reason behind a title going downhill, it's easier to take. You know,
especially now that you mentioned that the reason why they had all of that fog in certain scenes was that way it covers up the stuff that they don't have, because like you said, I mean, like, it got cut in half from 24 to 10. Like, you can't really do that much in that short period of time. And especially too, which sucks, is because Netflix and like news sites, like, they were promoting this movie as like a big blockbuster movie, and when you actually watch it, I mean, you have the cast, you know, I mean, everything looked good in the film. You know what I'm saying? Like, the outfits and all of that stuff, it looked good. It's just that there were certain elements of this film that were lacking in a lot of parts, you know. But I thought that the story overall, I thought it was meh, because it was something that I really couldn't follow, because there were times where it's just like we really didn't get a lot of backstory or flashbacks to certain characters. Because I know, like, when the doctor, Dr. Leah Goss, because that's James Ford's wife, and she ends up leaving him after he kills all of those people. And it's just like she just reappears at the end of the movie, and it's just like now she's an alien. And I was just like, well, when did all of this happen? Like, when did she? I mean, like they showed like a quick flash, like they snatched her up and made her an alien, but it's just like, but what made her go out to try and see what was going on and explore? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and that's one of those things where it's like credit to Ed Drake, because he was. He's not an experienced director. This was kind of his first big thing, I think. And when they told him that they're chopping the schedule down, he was desperately cutting pages from the shooting schedule and trying to keep some like skeleton of the story. The story that he wrote, because he wrote it too, was pretty cool. It was like, and it was funny because when it started out, the production designer got a hold of me. He's like, hey, this isn't going to be very gun heavy. It's more story. And then as the rewrites started coming in, as I called him up and I was like, yo, this is turning into like Black Hawk Down in space. Like, what are we, there's a lot here and it's going to be really cool, but it went from being more cerebral to being more of a, straight action sci-fi. And then it got just totally cut down, and so it was weird for me to watch it. I didn't watch it until about a month ago.
I was going to ask you if you did.
Yeah, I had to talk myself into it, because like I saw it come up and it was like, okay, it was one of those things where it's like I knew that the whole time I was watching it, I was going to be thinking about what was going on when we were filming that scene, or like what that scene should have been. It was kind of a big thing. But yeah, so Ed cut down just tons of stuff that just, it would have made this story make way more sense, but we just didn't have the days to shoot it. Like Bruce was only on set for 4 days of the 10. So, and then we had to do everything else with, he's got a really cool double named Eric, who goes, if you watch the movie, especially like if you're looking at the back of his head, you'll notice that it's kind of a different shape, and that's Eric. So he did everything to fill in the other 6 days, and then we were shooting everybody else's coverage, like Frank's and everybody else. But I'm trying to remember what the point was of the aliens taking over her specifically, and I don't really remember. But there was so much.
I think she just wanted to know more about them.
Yeah, she did. She
we just wanted to know more about it.
Yeah, because we saw that early in the movie when she had saw the aliens at first, and one of the guys was like, well, what, are you trying to date this thing or what? And remember, she had put her hand up on the glass and then they shot it. Yeah, it kind of reminded me of Independence Day, where it's just like, we want to learn.
Yeah, it reminds you of every scientist in every science fiction.
Oh, for sure.
They always want to know more and get to know these things.
And then you see what happens.
Yeah, exactly. Every time.
They end up getting snatched up.
Correct.
Now,
snatched up.
Hey, I remember because you had said on the comment that there was only supposed to be one person in a suit, and there was going to be like more spaceships and stuff like that. Can you mind elaborating more on that stuff?
There was a big space battle in the original script where Frank Grillo's character was he did sacrifice himself, but he sacrifices himself in the original script by like detonating the reactor on his ship or something while he's like in radio contact with his son down on the planet. And the suit, what it was that they were supposed to all be in escape pods, and then one of the characters, I think it would have been Corey Large's character, was in the suit that became suddenly everybody's wearing the suits, and that was actually big shout to Hex Mortis, the shop that did the suits and a lot of the like background guns and stuff like that, because they went from an order for one suit to they just kept adding characters that would be in these suits. Like even into the first week of production, they added another character, the girl, who, like the scientist that's like running the whatever the quant jump thing.
Yeah.
She wasn't originally going to go with them. And then during the rewrites, when they were trying to make things make more sense, they were like, well, we should have her go too. She was super cool. I didn't realize she was Australian until we were talking, like in between takes. But yeah, like none of it none of what ended up on screen really resembles what was on the page, which is you know, an unfortunate reality of the business. But this is like the worst example of that I've ever seen, where they just were like, yeah, we're still making the movie, it's just not the movie that anybody signed on for.
Now this is a question I have, because this was a Netflix film, right? And I just wonder, because like how you said, like everything was cut in half and whatnot. We saw it with another Netflix show, Jupiter's Legacy. I want to say that they had invested like, I think it was over $2 million or $2 billion or something into it. And like that only had one season and it was a flop, you know what I'm saying? But then you have Cosmic Sin, which is also a Netflix film, and it's like I just don't understand like why they cut the production in the 10 days. You know what I'm saying?
Originally, it wasn't Netflix. It was we did it on spec, and it was, you know, because we had backers and all the other stuff, and then I think, you know, Saban got involved. So it's the Netflix thing happened through distribution. It wasn't actually a Netflix production, and that's I think
okay.
A lot of these kinds of movies is that Netflix will pick them up, you know, because they can get them for kind of cheap.
And you know, piggyback off of what you had just said, because of Saban, I did see like the little Saban image in the corner, and how you were saying about how you know, everybody had on suits now. When I saw everybody in suits, I was just like, okay, I see they trying to be the Power Rangers right now. All they needed was just the different colors.
I was actually thinking more of kind of like Alien, how they suit up in the original one to go, you know, take these aliens out. But yeah, you even had the girl with the giant gun. See,
dude, who's gonna have a girl with an even bigger gun?
Jesus.
So actually, this is a funny thing. By the end of the shoot, kind of the director, the AD department, and camera were all kind of at each other's throats, which is, I would say that would explain a lot of the shots that you saw that didn't really make any sense, like they were framed weird. I don't know, because that's, you know, the camera's not really my world, but I do know that there was a lot of arguing going on. And on the last day of filming, we were supposed to have a big battle scene where it was all of the refugees on this planet. That, you know, they had all taken shelter in this big building where the orbital cannon is. And it was going to be the refugees versus the aliens, but there were a couple of problems. And one was that we only had 6 background guys playing aliens at that point. But at one point, when they're running through the woods, when you see the bad guy, like the aliens running through the woods for the big like final attack, it's the same 6 guys running around the camera.
Oh wow!
It was film school. You know, we're all standing there watching it like, really? This is what we're doing. But so we had the set deck department had put together this set with these barricades and sandbags and all this stuff. And then, like, honestly, a big chunk of my prop budget was for all of the weapons and grenades and stuff that all these refugees were going to have as they're like on the barricades fighting the aliens, you know, and getting overwhelmed. And I grabbed the second AD, Rebecca, who was one of the like real heroes of this production. She was just kicking ass and was completely overwhelmed like the whole time. And she was super cool. And I was like, okay, I'm going to stick you in this movie, you know, which happens sometimes. And I had this giant machine gun that I was going to give her, and she was just going to be the girl with the big gun on the barricade. And then I was up on the roof with CJ Perry when she was doing the thing where she's shooting down the alien.
The alien ship, yeah.
So we're up there on the roof, and the roof was super dangerous. Like there were spots where it was like taped off. It's like, if you step here, you'll fall through.
Yeah.
And we're just hanging out. We were up there for like 2 hours, and then over the walkie we hear, "All right, everybody, that's a wrap. Thank you very much." And we were like, "Wait, what?" We were like, "We have 4 hours left in our shooting day. We were supposed to shoot this big battle, and something happened on the ground when we were up on the roof where they were just like, okay, we can't work together anymore. We're out." Dang. So that's another one of those things where it's like, part of the reason I didn't watch the movie for so long is because I didn't know how it was going to end, because that big third act battle scene that we were supposed to be building up to didn't happen. So, And it looked like just a bunch of footage from stuff inside to kind of like, be a placeholder for it. But
now, do you think the disagreement between the three sides is that result of having the shooting time cut and everybody just being on edge already?
Yeah, that's definitely a big part of it, and I think there were some creative,
differences.
Yeah, for sure. Because there was in the beginning of the movie when we're looking at the tent with the girl that's making out, when they first
yeah.
That was Ava. Ava was also super cool, by the way. The shot of the tent, there was a big argument about that because the tent was set up in a big warehouse.
Mm-hmm.
And they had the camera up on this ladder looking down, and it was framing the tent so that the only thing you could really see was the feet of the people in the tent. Mm-hmm. And they were doing dialogue in the tent, and it was just like, why are we doing this shot? Like you can't see anything that's going on. You see their feet moving around.
Yeah.
And that was like that. We lost, I want to say, like an hour of shooting because of the argument about how to do that shot. Mm. And that was toward the end when people's nerves were getting frayed and stuff.
Yeah, everybody was trying to get on edge and whatnot. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like every day, like people got a little in those departments, got a little more salty.
Yep. Probably.
But, the other departments, like we were just handling our business and trying to make it work. But it was the whole thing there was way more stress than there needed to be, which is what always happens when producers and like financial backing people decide they want to cut corners and save money, by like carving off some days and paying people less money and all this other stuff. Like that movie actually flipped and became a union show at the beginning. And I think that's part of the reason that they were cutting a bunch of days and stuff to try and save money, was because when you do a union show, it costs more money because, people are guaranteed certain rates and stuff like that. But it's just the money people, I want to say, don't really care about the quality of the product. I've had so many conversations with producers where it's like, yeah, I can do it cheaper, but then it's going to look way worse. And they're like, but you can do it cheaper, right? Like that's their big takeaway. So this is kind of like the ultimate example of that, where they're just like, oh yeah, you can do it cheaper? Great. I don't care about anything else.
Yeah. So one last thing, and we can wrap up this review. And then I had a couple more questions for you, but I already said what I gave this score. I gave it a 3 out of 10. D, what do you give it?
Man, look, I like most of the actors and actresses in this, man. And it's not their fault when you get like I said, when you know the reason behind a project, it sheds more light on it. I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10. I mean, I like the cast the whole way over. I mean, they cut out a lot of story. So it's not their fault,
you find
man.
out about it. It's
just exactly. I feel different about it. It's not like, man, this was just a crappy movie. You know what happened.
Yeah.
They lost more than half of shooting time. That's crazy. Absolutely crazy. And then just looking at the lineup of actors, actresses, even the props and stuff, dude, this is a pretty heavy project, and it's kind of strange for them to give it the budget and then cut it in over half. So yeah 5 out of 10, man.
Mm-hmm. Hey, what about you after you finally watched the film?
Oh, I would give it a 3 probably. And but it's one of those things where it's like the reason I would ding it so hard is because I know what the potential was versus what we ended up.
It's true.
And that was a hard one.
Crazy.
I had a big glass of scotch the whole way I was drinking it, or watching it.
I bet you did.
So, but hey, Tay, I just want to say thank you for coming up here and doing this review with us. Now, to end the review on a more positive note, I wanted to ask you a couple of questions about just who you are and whatnot. Turn it segue into a little interview type deal. So I wanted to ask you, how did you get into doing props?
Well, I started out in the art department, and I was, the entry level job in the art department is set dresser, which you start to realize is basically a glorified furniture mover. And so, I started looking around at the things that I was actually interested in, and I'd moved to Hollywood with the idea that I was going to be an armorer and do like real gun stuff at one point. But I didn't know anything about guns. So it was one of those things where it's like, well, if I'm going to do this, I need to learn about guns. So I started learning about guns more and actually shooting them and then all that stuff. And so some of my first prop gigs were people who were like, hey, you know about guns, right? Can you come help us with our little short or whatever? And then that was kind of the thing where I realized that was more my area of interest was, bringing the cool little thing into the scene. I was paying way more attention to just like the MacGuffins, basically, like the little story driver that's like looks really cool, and you want to know what that is. You want it on your shelf, that kind of deal.
Like the Q bomb.
Yeah, which I still have actually. I still have that, and I have Bruce Willis's gun.
Oh, sick!
Nice.
Nice.
So, I want to ask you, like, what are some of your favorite projects that you've been a part of that you've done props on?
The first one was actually, it was like 10 years ago. It was a Black Keys video called Howlin' For You with Trisha Helfer from Battlestar Galactica. And we did it as like a Grindhouse movie trailer. And it was funny because my boss called me up and he was like, hey, so when they bid this job, they way underbid. So I can either pay you or we can rent props. Do you have anything in your house that'll work for this theme? And I'm the kind of weirdo. I got, antlers on my wall and bullet belts and all this other stuff. And I started sending him pictures. It's like, yeah, cool, bring it on. So when I watched that video, I'm like, that's mine and that's mine and that's mine. It's like the whole video is just my stuff from my house that was just decorating my house.
Yeah.
That was kind of my first prop gig. And, I think that was where the seed really, I was like, oh, okay, I'm actually good at this kind of thing.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But,
yeah, that's pretty sick.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I mean, it's every movie is different, and I have fun with them all in the moment. I just did White Elephant with Bruce Willis, and he kind of does like a cameo. It's more of a Michael Rooker movie, so trying to resist the urge to yell "I'm Mary Poppins, y'all!" like every day at work. But that one was really cool. It was kind of intense. We shot that one in South Georgia. So for now, that's probably my favorite really prop heavy movie I've done. And part of it too is that like my main thing is actually commercials. Like it's the joke is that I do commercials to pay the rent and I do movies because I like doing movies. So a lot of times I'll sign on for these projects like Cosmic, where it's just like any sane person, as soon as they got the new schedule, would be like, yeah, I'm out. I'm like, no, let's do it. Let's try to make it happen.
Yeah. Well, now, question to piggyback off of that. Now, do you count projects, as just experience? This is experience that you need working with different crews, different props. Is that how you look at it? Or is that how you try to look at it, even when it's a project like Cosmic? Like, all experience is good experience.
Exactly.
I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. I would say 90% of the time that's how I try to approach it. There's that other 10% where I'm like, no, this is just terrible.
Yeah, good.
But I have a shirt that I wear to work sometimes that just says "Embrace the suck." Because it's
good motto.
It's where it's like it might be a really big, cool movie, but there are some days that are just terrible, and a day on set is a minimum of 12 hours. So. It's going to be a long, hard day. If it starts out bad, it's going to be rough.
Oh yeah, it's always like that.
Yeah. So, and that's what I have to try to tell people that are like just getting into it, and they're like, I've had people come up and they're like, yeah, I want to do props like you, and I'm like, no, get out, like, do something else, get into camera, make some real grown-up money.
Yeah, because that was actually the next question that I was going to ask you, is like anybody that wanted to get into prop making and stuff like that, because honestly, like a lot of cosplayer friends that I have, I see the type of skills that they have into making props for their cosplay and stuff like that. So it's just like, I would think that if they can make really good weapons for the costumes that they make, then the prop department will be a really fun place for them to try to get their foot in the door at.
Yes and no, because it's one of those things where it's like, it's fun to do the craft, right? It's fun to, especially if you're reading a script, if you go to a read through and you're like, oh, I can make something really cool for this, and you make the director happy with that, then that's a rewarding experience, I guess. The problem is, like, a lot of times you'll get people who you don't have control over the final product. So trying to think of a really diplomatic way to say this. You'll work with people whose vision is really derivative, and it'll be like they saw something cool once in another movie and they want that same thing in their movie, and you're like, but we've already seen that. Like, which I've seen a lot of people get frustrated with, especially like because I do work with people who do cosplay stuff pretty frequently, and that's always kind of the sticking point for them is like, I came here to be creative, and all I'm doing is rehashing something somebody else already did. So, you know, one of the weird things about this industry is figuring out the most effective way to tell people no without using the word no.
Yeah.
So
I totally understand that. Or it's the same thing, you know, like in wrestling. I've always, like, if somebody has a bad match, like, I would never tell them that they suck or it was a bad match. I would always look more for the positives and the things that they can work on, because sometimes, like, telling somebody no, like, that can derail them. Like, sometimes it can make people like, okay, well, I'm done. You know what I'm saying? And I just feel like if it's something that you're truly passionate about, and, you know, something that you can see yourself growing into, then it's just like you always want to be able to, you know, just give them positive feedback and then help them grow. Without derailing what they're trying to do in their careers.
When you're dealing with egos, at least in the film industry, what I've found is really effective is phrase everything as compliment, question. It's not a statement. You're not saying, no, that sucks. It's, oh, that's really cool. I love the color on that. Why do you want the blade to be that shape? Kind of thing, you know?
Nice. But, so one final question. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to get back to touch on what you were saying before about, like, people who want to get their foot in the door with prop stuff. The thing I would say is make things, like, learn how to make things, and take a lot of pictures of your work, because that's the thing that's bitten me in the ass the most, is that I'm running around on set, which a lot of prop masters don't do. One of my assistants likes to call me the blue collar prop master, because I will go and I'll be on set and I'll be, you know, up to my elbows in this stuff. And I don't take pictures. And then I have to go back later and get, like, stills and things like that. So it's people who want to start in any kind of prop making business, they need to document all of their work. And because I've been doing this for 10 years, and I don't have very many pictures.
Like basically building a portfolio.
Portfolio. You know?
Exactly. You know, traditional art aspect of it. You know, you always want to document. I mean, it makes sense. You should do that with anything artistic anyway. So,
I mean, it's the same thing like with wrestling. It's just, and I tell people this all the time. It's like, when you wrestle at a show, don't expect the promoter to record your match. You need to always take a camera with you, so that way that you can record your stuff. Because it's like, you can't send, like, if you want to get booked at a new promotion, I mean, you can send, like, some of your older stuff, but if the video is like 5 years old, it's like, it's not really showing what you've grown into and, like, what you can do now. You know what I'm saying? People change. Some people evolve. I'll say that. But it's like, you always want to have up-to-date stuff. And this is a segue into my next question is, Tay, when you're not making props, what are some of your hobbies that you're into?
Well, it's funny because I think I'm always making props. That's kind of the thing, is like, I always have some kind of creative output, you know, or it's like I'll get an idea for something. So I just moved back about a year ago out of my space in Burbank. And it was funny because a few months prior, I was looking around at all of my stuff from movies, from commercials, and just all my projects were sitting around. And I was like, I rent this place. and I'm gonna have to move at some point. And it was like it was an old photo studio, so I basically lived in a tiny warehouse. So I had like a warehouse full of stuff that I was like, okay, I need to start getting rid of stuff now. But there's so many things where it's just like something will pop into my head, or I'll be watching a movie or flipping through a magazine or whatever, and I'll see something, I'll be like, I could make a better version of that, or that sort of thing. So that's kind of there's not really a lot of gray area between hobby and work for most people.
Yeah.
It's all the same thing, where it's like, I'll make something that, maybe next year it's sitting on my shelf right now, and then like a year from now I'm like, that'd be really cool in this movie.
Yes.
Hey, let's bring it in.
Yeah,
it's cool. It's like you already have props ready to go. You know what I'm saying? And like that's all
ideas.
Cool. Yeah, because it's like you can show it to somebody and be like, hey, that's what I'm looking for. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's really cool. And Tay, I just want to say thank you for joining us up here on this review/interview that it turned into at the end of it. We appreciate you coming on with us, man. We really do. And before we let you go, let everybody in social media land know where they can find you at.
Well, I'm Tay Oleson on Instagram. I use my real name because it's related to my work. And then that's kind of it right now. I'm redoing my website. So don't look at my IMDb page because it's full of things I'd like to forget about. But yeah, I'm around. It's Instagram is probably the easiest way to kind of get a feel for what I'm doing and what I'm bringing to set.
All right, cool. Cool. Thank you. And
man. You can find me at rebellious_D23 at Instagram.com. Thanks. Take it away.
You weren't going to do your line?
Oh, hey, if you're looking for a hero, thanks. Tell them where they can find you.
Hey, I thought you was going to say if they need somebody to help them with these aliens.
No, they don't need. They got enough help. Not on this project. They're covered.
You can find me, your hero, Benjamin Banks, at KingBenji_Banks on Twitter and Instagram. You can find me on Facebook at Benjamin Banks. That should be the first person to pop up. If not, I need to contact Mr. Zuckerberg. Thank you again for watching this review. Make sure you check out some more of our reviews, interviews, and reaction videos that we have here on our channel. Check out our podcast where we release new episodes every Tuesday. Like I always say, keep that pinky up. Stay positive. We'll see you next time on Leveling Up with Benjamin Banks. Peace. Thank you for watching a brand new episode of Leveling Up with Benjamin Banks. Make sure that you hit that like button and you subscribe to our channel. Hit the bell button so that way you're always notified when we have new content on our channel. Make sure you check out our podcast where we release new episodes every Tuesday, and the video of that episode is uploaded on Friday. And you can find new episodes of our podcast on all podcast platforms. Make sure you follow all the Leveling Up with Benjamin Banks social media accounts at Leveling Up Banks on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Also, we have a Patreon. If you're feeling generous and would love to donate to us, it's at Leveling Up Banks. And huge shout out to our patrons. We really appreciate you and thank you for the support. We'll see you next time on Leveling Up with Benjamin Banks.